That's not Agile. Now, if you've ever been an Agile coach or a Scrum Master or have led an Agile organization, I'm certain you have heard those terms before. And in Chapter 5 of Digital Trailblazer, I share my stories of bringing Agile to enterprises who are trying to develop Agile cultures and mindsets without falling into the trap of trying to mimic large organizations who are trying to scale Agile. Now, in this episode of the Driving Digital Stand-Up and the author interview series, I share my insights on Agile continuous planning and how to really develop your Agile way of working.
I want to welcome Ginny Hamilton. Ginny is a community manager and was the editor of Digital Trailblazer. That's really why it's so good. Thank you, Ginny, for being here with me.
Thanks for having me, Isaac. I'm excited to talk about Chapter 5.
Great. Let's go for it.
One thing I love about this chapter is that, throughout the book, you've been very passionate about Agile, throughout your business, everything that you do, you're a big proponent of Agile. You talk about it being a core process that enables digital transformation. Totally agree with you there. Can you, for listeners, connect the dots around what it's like going from vision to continuous planning to delivering transformation and formalizing roadmaps?
Yeah, let's unpack that for a second and look at the scenario, right? So I walk into some teams that are trying to practice Agile and they're very sprint focused, right? They figure out what's happening into the next sprint. They sign up for it, they commit to it. They don't really look very far out beyond that existing sprint. So there's a lot of just-in-time planning, and that's kind of one extreme that I see. Sure. And the other extreme I see is taking a group of stakeholders that think they know exactly what they want. They still want a prescriptive plan, and the Agile team is forced into fitting that prescriptive plan into sprints, right? Mm-hmm. So I have to deliver something in Q4. I'm going to break that up into sprints, and here's exactly what I'm delivering every single sprint between now and then. And that's sort of like a waterfall fitting into an Agile process. And you see a lot of that going on. And so you take a step back and you say, well, how do I fix this? How do I get the benefits of short-term planning that goes into Agile, but also get the benefits of having some visibility of what's coming down a month or 2 months down the road? And so the best example I could think of for you, Ginny, is, when I think about going from a single bicycle rider to riding bicycle as a team and saying, how far can I bike? How much do I have to push when I'm riding as a team? How far can I go? And that team has to learn to work together. Right. Initially, they might sign up and say, we can do maybe 30 miles together, or maybe we could do 40 miles biking together. But it takes a few times getting on the bike and working together to figure out what your velocity is. How do you work together as a team? What's your stamina? What's the different situations and obstacles that you have to work through? And as you're doing that, then you could start forecasting it. It's a 70-degree day, light wind. I think I could do 60 miles, or it's 90-degree and humid. Maybe we should cut back on that. So that's the difference, right? Is the teams coming together and figuring out how to work together. And so when you start building up that muscle of working together, what you find in Agile, it's first just bringing it into technology terms for a second, or delivery terms. At any given time, I'm pedaling, I'm working hard, I'm figuring out what I'm going to deliver this sprint. I'm also using some of my time to plan the upcoming sprints. Right. And so I'm going to put disciplines into my Agile process to be able to do that. And also in my sprint, I'm also going to listen for feedback. I'm going to go back to customers, end users, whoever you're delivering your technology or your services to, listening for their feedback and coming back and saying, we have to make some adjustments. And I'm going to do all three of those at the same time. And when I could do that, I could start going from an idea and a vision to something where I'm continuously planning and understanding what our capabilities are, so I could start putting together a roadmap against that.
Got it. Yeah, I love how big of a proponent you are about feedback. Feedback is definitely a gift, and I know that that's something that you emphasize throughout the Agile process. You also have a strong opinion on the importance of defining your organization's Agile ways of working rather than just scaling Agile. Talk about the difference between these two approaches. What's the difference between scaling Agile and really just defining your organization's agile ways of working?
Yeah. So, when I talk to CIOs about this, not just scaling Agile, but the scaled Agile framework and other frameworks that really help very large organizations run Agile, quote unquote, at scale. And what they mean by that is not just one or two teams practicing Agile, but maybe hundreds of teams and thousands of developers being able to sprint and follow a practice in a semi-uniform, consistent way. Now, if your organization has thousands of people that you're trying to do this with, using a framework in a very structured way may be the right thing to do. Okay, I'm not here to just kind of say it's a bad idea for everyone, but for most of the organizations that I talk to, right, they're looking for things like, how do we change the culture? How do we become more agile in our thinking? How do we develop this agile mindset of using feedback to continue to adjust our priorities? That we're not going to have all the requirements up front, that we have to learn as we go a little bit. Yeah. And so when you start bringing that piece in and saying, well, how does this organization practice Agile, maybe with 100, maybe with 500 people in it? Maybe some of them have done SAFe before, and some of them have done less before. Some of them have just done basic Scrum or Kanban before. They're all coming in from different experiences and knowledge about what Agile and Scrum are all about. And you're sitting there as a digital trailblazer, as a CIO, and saying, I want to have both self-organizing capabilities, but I also need some standards.
Right.
Okay. And so what works for me may not be in my organization, may not work exactly the same way for you, because you're doing more innovation and I'm doing more automation. You're doing more customer facing, I'm doing more internally facing applications. And so that's why I go back to organizations and say, how does this organization want to run Agile? What does that mean in this organization? And let's bring people together to formulate what exactly that practice looks like.
Got it. So it's not a one size fits all approach in that regard. And I think, that's a really nice segue into the power of an Agile Center of Excellence, which I know is something that your company has a specialization in helping organizations build. Can you maybe give a quick summary on how you help companies develop and improve their Agile ways of working, and maybe what the role of an Agile Center of Excellence could be in that?
Yeah, absolutely, Jenny. I mean, if you think about what I just said, coming up with your own Agile way of working, do I want my own team? I have, a few people who've done Scrum for a long period of time. Do I want them to come up with their own flavor of Agile? Or do I want guides that will help them figure out what needs to be figured out? And I'll share a couple of examples. One example is roles and responsibilities, right? I use the term product owner or Scrum Master or Scrum Facilitator, as we know one of Star CIO's clients chose to use. These terms, the roles and responsibilities, the different job descriptions, it's going to be different in every company that I've ever worked with, right? Some will want to use product owner, some will call it a service owner, some will call it a program manager. They will change some of the responsibilities. So that's one area that will be a little bit different. Another area that might be a little bit different, I knew one company that said, we're going to use Agile everywhere, and we're only going to do Scrum. Right, we're only going to figure out how to make Scrum work. Other organizations say to me, Isaac, we want to use Scrum for our innovation projects. We want to use Kanban for our infrastructure projects, and here's why, right? And so we'll listen to that and say, okay, this is the best way to go about putting this all together and coming up with a standard that everybody can go work through. Okay, and that standard is something that we help organizations do in 2-month cadences. So every 2 months, a way of working group comes up with, here are the practices that we want to roll out. Here's how we instrument them. Here's how we document them. Here's how we set them up in tools. They roll it out just like another software release or another dashboard release that becomes their version 1 way of working. And then they get access to our body of knowledge to continue to do that practice maturity, that riding on the bicycle that they do to continue to improve their process, listen to feedback, see what's working about their Agile, and continue to improve on it.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is that you're listening to the feedback from your clients about what their strengths are and where they need help, and then you're guiding them in the right way to use Agile to help them achieve that. That's really cool.
guiding them and also helping digital trailblazers become self-sufficient so they guide themselves afterward, right? We just get them figuring out how to ride the bicycle together. And then we find that after 3 or 6 months of these programs, they're able to ride the bicycles themselves.
And then they got it. They can put the chain back on the bike. If it pops off during the ride, they can self-manage. So I love that.
Yes.
All right, Isaac. Well, with that, I'll toss back to you.
Thanks, Ginny. And this was our episode on Chapter 5, which is all my stories around how to bring Agile into enterprises. And I hope you read that chapter and are interested in it. And our next episode, Chapter 6, is all going to be talking about bringing a global experience to your organization. Thanks again, Ginny.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Digital Trailblazer author interview series. Please sign up for my YouTube channel and subscribe. That's the Driving Digital Stand-Up. And if you buy the book, Digital Trailblazer, you'll learn how to get access to the Digital Trailblazer community, where I have tons of more content and videos to accelerate your learning around digital transformation. Thank you and have a great day.